What's going on, boys? Um, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome back to the stream. Just want to make sure everything's working out well, per usual. Um, my bad, boys. Just 1 second. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Anyone hopping into the stream now? Welcome back. Welcome back. We definitely have some things to talk about here. 1 second. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Everything's working well. So, welcome, boys. Welcome back to the stream. I'll give a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds, I guess, for other people to join the stream. But yeah, we're back. Yesterday, I didn't live stream. Unfortunately, I missed a day, which I was not happy about. But I just really wasn't feeling well yesterday, and even today, I'm really not feeling well either. But I can't miss 2 days. I got to hop on stream and talk about some stuff, especially because we have some news. So I just wanted to hop on the stream and talk about that with you boys. But yeah, I'll wait a little bit longer, but yeah, I mean, we can get into it. So we have some news that came out. Some contradicting things actually, but still, let's get into it. So this is first. So Dricus Duplessis said on a video, an interview, or whatever it was, that the co-main event of his card, UFC 319, is going to be Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. Now, this is a fight I talked about a lot. This is a fight that I personally wanted to see a lot. I thought this made sense because Paddy versus Ilia is kind of the fight to make, especially considering we didn't get Islam versus Ilia, at least right now. Maybe we'll get it in the future. But I thought that was probably the fight to make. And the most logical way to do so is put him up against Justin Gaethje. Now, the reason why I wanted Gaethje versus Paddy is I think Gaethje's probably the most winnable fight for Paddy at the top, let's say top 5 or top 3 of 155. So that's the fight that I wanted to see. Now, it seemed like after Ilia won the belt, it seemed like the UFC may just give Paddy the shot immediately. But at this point, it seems like that's not going to happen. So we got this report yesterday, I believe. But we had a contradicting report coming from Pat himself. Paddy said this is not accurate. And this makes sense because if you watched the card versus Ilia versus Charles, UFC 317 last week, you saw Paddy come into the cage and you saw that he was significantly overweight. So I don't think he'll be able to cut that much weight and train and get into shape and do everything the right way in a month and a half. I mean, this card's in like a month and a half from now. So, it didn't really make sense, Paddy versus Gaethje at this time. Now, obviously, listen, things can change. Money talks. Maybe the UFC offers a lot of money or whatever it is, or maybe Dricus is just lying from the beginning. I don't really know. But we'll see what happens there. But yeah. What's going on, brother? I'm good. What's going on from the kick side? What's going on? But yeah, so that's the information that we got from this. Most likely, this fight's not going to happen. Now, it doesn't mean that the UFC is, just going to give Paddy the title shot right away. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Everything's fluid. Everything's moving, and we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't be shocked if, as I said, I like this fight, Gaethje versus Paddy. But we'll see what happens there. John, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the stream. How's your stream going? My stream's going good. Thanks for asking. But yeah, so we'll see what happens on this front. If I had to guess, I think this fight's probably going to get done, if I had to be honest, but I don't think it's going to get done in August. I think they're going to pay a lot of money to Gaethje to fight Paddy just because it makes sense. And even that fight is a pretty big fight, Gaethje versus Paddy. Will Gaethje accept it? I know he said he's only going to accept a title shot unless he gets paid a lot of money. So we'll see. I think the UFC may pay him a decent amount of money. So outside of that, we have, if that fight does happen, Gaethje and Paddy, then it kind of leaves Arman out of, the equation. He's probably the number 1 contender at this point. I know Dana's not really happy with him because he pulled out. According to Dana, he pulled out because he missed weight. According to Arman, he pulled out because of an injury. when he was weight cutting. So we don't exactly know what's happening, but uh, Armin's kind of setting up a potential fight between him and Dan Hooker. The thing about Dan Hooker though is um, it's kind of weird because he got surgery on his hand before the Gaethje fight, before he was supposed to fight Gaethje, and it seemed like that really never recovered or recovered properly. So I don't really know when Dan Hooker could possibly return or possibly fight. So yeah, this could be a fight that gets put together. It could be a good fight, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see how everything pans out. The timeline of it will also be interesting. If Paddy and Gaethje do fight, you would think it would have to be relatively soon. Not too soon, like August is probably a little bit too soon just because Paddy has to cut the weight because he gets so out of shape during his camps, or when he's not in his camps, I should say. But if he waits too long and you put together an Armin versus Dan Hooker, you can't really have Armin win that fight and then wait for Paddy and Gaethje to fight, and then one of them will get the time. Like, it's kind of a mess. You kind of have to push things forward a little bit if you're the UFC. Um, but yeah. Bro, what is your professional? Nothing right now. I'm just doing YouTube and live streaming a little bit, and yeah, just making YouTube videos, live streaming. I'm on a couple different platforms right now, live on YouTube, live on Kick, as you're watching on, and also live on Twitch. We added that the other day. But yeah, I mean, that's a little news we have. I mean, outside of that, we have an update to the rankings. And I actually, in a previous live stream, I put together my personal pound for pound rankings, and it actually looked exactly like this. At least the top 5 did. Ilia's at 1. I think he probably deserves to be at 1. I mean, he moved up to a weight class and finished off Charles Oliveira relatively easily. Pause. But I know Islam beat Charles as well, but it's a little bit different because they're at the same weight class, for one. And for two, not saying that Charles was a difficult fight for Islam. He did beat him, and it wasn't like too hard. But at the same time, Ilia kind of just beat him in all aspects. He was able to stop takedowns. He was able to reverse position. He was able to get out of submissions. And on the feet, he was able to set up and land that big right hand. And of course, he was able to find a finish not too long after that. So I think Ilia beat Charles a little bit better. And he also beat Volkanovski a little bit better. In their second fight between Volk and Islam, that's comparable, I guess. I mean, they both kind of finished Volk relatively quickly. Islam even finished him quicker. But in their first fight between Islam and Volkanovski, it was a really close fight. A lot of people even think that Volk won the fight. Personally, to me, I think Islam probably won. But it was close. It was close for sure. So yeah, so we have Islam or Ilia at 1, which I would agree with. We have Islam at 2, which I would agree with. We have Merab at 3. Once again, I would agree with. Dricus at 4. I think I would agree with it. And Pantoja at 5. Finally, he moves up from number 9. Somehow he was all the way down at number 9 previous to his last fight against KKF. But now, after that win, he got some respect back, and now he's number 5 in the pound-for-pound rankings. Now, some people would argue that Pantoja should be ahead of Dricus, which is fair, honestly. I mean, Pantoja has beaten so many guys, not only as a champion, but even prior. He's just beaten so many contenders. So there is that argument. Joshua, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. But yeah, so I mean, just Pantoja's just beaten so many guys. So there definitely is that argument that he should be above Dricus. But at the very least, I'm happy for Pantoja that he moved up to a reasonable spot. I mean, as I said, maybe you can put him even higher. But number 5 is a lot more reasonable than number 9 was. So that's good to see. John says, I want to see Pantoja versus Merab so badly. Me too. I talked about this a couple different times. That's really the fight where it's like, you have your casuals like fights where it's Sean O'Malley versus somebody, even if he doesn't deserve the title shot. Maybe Sean O'Malley versus Merab was an exciting fight for casual fans. But for the hardcores, that's the fight. Pantoja versus Merab. I mean, it seems like Merab's unstoppable, and it seems like Pantoja's unstoppable. Let's just put together, those two guys. Both these guys have been very dominant even as well. Pantoja's just overwhelming guys in the feet, and once it gets to the ground, he's just submitting guys. And for Merab, I mean, he's just constantly shooting for takedowns. He's even getting better on the feet, having success there as well. And he's also submitting guys now. But yeah, it's definitely very interesting. Joshua says, I agree, John. The fight should be made. Yeah, I agree as well. That would be a really good fight. What's going on, brother? We got another member in the chat. What's going on? Pantoja should be number 4. Yeah, that's fair. I definitely don't hate it. I mean, he's beaten a lot more guys and a lot more contenders than Dricus has. I just think it's that thing of, he's just a little bit. I mean, he's at 125 pounder as compared to Dricus, who's a lot bigger. So I think naturally they get a little bit underrated, guys at 125. Although I personally, and probably a lot of you guys in the chat also would agree that that's not really fair. Pantoja, I mean, is a legend at this point. There's an argument. I don't know if he's there yet, but there's an argument to be made that he's the greatest 125er ever. Obviously, he has significantly less title defenses than Demetrius, but still, the level of guys that he's beating is higher than Demetrius. Maybe 1 or 2 more wins to really solidify that, but I think he's very close at the bare minimum. What Pantoja is doing is pretty crazy, and yeah, as you said, I mean, he's number 5 now. Honestly, might be a little bit too low. But yeah, John says Pantoja versus the top bantamweights. Will be sick fights. Yeah, I would love to. I would love to see that, but Pantoja's kind of the mindset. I mean, listen, greatness is accomplished in a couple different ways. Title defense, like staying in your division, being champion, and getting title defenses, which kind of seems like what Pantoja wants to do. Or you have the Ilia route, where you beat some contenders along the way, get your title shot, win the belt, maybe get 1 title defense, and then move up. So it's kind of different ways to do it. We see Pantoja just staying in his weight class. We see Ilia moving up, and he's even talking about moving up again to 170. So there's different ways to do it. But it seems like Pantoja wants to stay at 125. But even there, I mean, listen, if he moves up to 135, there's definitely a lot of interesting fights. Obviously, the Merab fight's there. But even at 125, there's a lot of really fun fights. His next fight is going to be against Joshua Van. I think that's going to be a really, really fun fight, Pantoja versus Van. Another fight that I think would be fun is him versus Kopp. Kopp's going to have to get a win at this point. He did pull out of his last fight. But if he can get a win under his belt, beat a top guy, and get that title fight versus Pantoja, that's also an interesting one. I mean, probably outside of that, Pantoja beats everybody. And even then, I think he probably beats Joshua Van. And I think he also probably beats Manel Kopp. But, there's definitely interesting ones for sure. Imagine Pantoja versus Corey Umaryan. Yeah, I mean, those are sick fights. Those are definitely sick fights. It'll be interesting to see if he ever decides to maybe change his mind and move up to 135. It's just at this point, it seems like Pantoja is of the mindset that he wants to stay at 125 and get all those title defenses, maybe similarly to what Demetrius Johnson was able to do. So maybe that's his goal and his prerogative. Or Pantoja versus Figgy 2. That would be a really interesting one too. I mean, Figgy was the only guy to drop Pantoja. So that'll be interesting. At this point, I think Pantoja would win that fight just because it just seems like he's in his prime. I mean, on the feet, he's looking a lot better than he was. On the ground, I mean, obviously he's a jiu-jitsu wizard. Is he going to sub Figgy? I don't know. I mean, Figgy's also insanely good at jiu-jitsu and on the ground in general. So it'll be tough, obviously. It'll be fun scrambles on the ground for sure. Tough fight, but I think Pantoja would probably win that at this point in both of their respective careers. And also Figueiredo is coming off, I believe he tore his ACL. He tore something in his last fight versus Corey, unfortunately for him. Joshua says Pantoja versus Van, Corey versus Merab, Islam versus JDM, DDP versus Chimaev, Unk versus Poatan. End of the year is looking good. There's a lot of really fun fights. I mean, I think off those fights that you put together, Pantoja versus Van is going to be really fun, like really, really fun. Corey versus Merab. I think Merab wins, but Merab fights are usually entertaining, so we'll see what happens in that one. Islam versus JDM. That's like, listen, everybody, including myself, wants Ilia versus Islam, 100%. But outside of that, thinking of Islam versus JDM, just outside of the Ilia possibility, that's still like a really, really good fight and a really fun fight. It'll be a huge step up for Islam. I mean, just moving up to a much bigger weight class against a bigger guy who's dangerous will be interesting to see. So I think that's going to be a really fun one as well. And DDP Chimaev, as I touched upon a couple different times, I think that's probably the best fight you can put together. for the UFC at this point outside of Islam versus Ilia. So that's obviously going to be a very, very good fight. And even Unk Poatan, the first one wasn't amazing. It was a little bit slow. But still, at the end of the day, I might as well full screen this. What's going on, fellas? But and I'll throw your comment up here. But yeah, but at the end of the day, you know, it still should be probably a fun fight. I'm sure Poatan is going to make some adjustments in this fight. The leg kicks are usually very effective for him, but in that fight against Uncle Liev did kind of a good job at taking away space when Poatan would leg kick, and all of a sudden Poatan was is with his back alongside the cage for the majority of the fight. So yeah, that was interesting, and then good adjustments by Uncle Liev. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure, as I said, Alex is going to make some adjustments in that fight, but we will see. Big Onk, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. How's it going? Pretty good, pretty good. One second. But yeah, sorry about that. Big Onk says lightweight rankings need to change. Chandler, Dustin, Moicano. Yeah. So let's take a look. Lightweight rankings. Let's see the rankings. So currently we have Ilias, obviously the champion. Then we have Islam still in the rankings until he moves up, obviously. Then we have Armin at 2, but realistically, Armin at 1, Charles at 2, Gaethje at 3, Max at 4, Dustin at 5, Hooker at 6. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to see how everything pans out. Moicano's on 2-fight losing streak, I believe, against Islam, and obviously he just lost against Benil. For Chandler, I mean, he has a bunch of losses already in a row. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with Chandler. I mean, if I were him, I'd probably retire or at least consider it. He was never an amazing fighter, although he was very exciting. But the thing about Chandler, what made him so exciting and what, made him competitive against a lot of these top guys. I mean, he was relatively competitive against Dustin, against Gaethje, even against Charles. I mean, he had his moments in all three of those fights. The reason why that was and why he was being, effective against all those guys is he was super explosive. He was throwing these huge shots. He was landing big right hands. He was hurting his opponents. He didn't have the skill or technical ability to actually put them away once he hurt them, at least for most guys. But the fact that he was even making it competitive against those guys was due to his explosion. But I think we saw this a little bit in his fight against Charles the second time, and we also saw this. Well, we definitely saw this in his fight against Paddy. He's just a little bit gun shy at this point. His explosion doesn't seem to be there the same way as it was in the past. So yeah, I mean, if I were Chandler, I'd probably consider retirement. I don't know how many guys he could really beat at this point, but we will see. And Dustin, I mean, he's going to retire, so he'll be out of the rankings. Unless he wins, he knocks out Max Holloway, then the UFC is like, oh, here's a title shot. I'm sure he'll stay if that's the case, but I don't think that's super likely. Rufy said he could fight in a fight night main event. My guess is either Grant Dawson or Chandler or Dan Hooker. Yeah, those would be good fights. I would like to see Rufy in a main event just because I would like to see him fight 5 rounds. He did have a fight where his cardio didn't look amazing. Of course, his last fight versus Bobby Green, you can't really take much away from that. He was just able to land a spinning wheel kick very effectively. So that was an amazing win, an amazing performance from him. But in terms of the questions that come with Rufy, which is his cardio, you didn't really get those answered in his last fight. So I would like to see him in a main event 5-rounder against any one of those guys. Dawson, even Chandler would be fun, and Dan Hooker as well, just to see if one guy can push him a little bit, like we saw in one of his fights. And if they're able to push him, how does he respond to that? Does he start to slow down and start to gas out, or does he continue to push the pace? And can he find finishes late in the fight? There are still questions about Rufy, but I personally think he is going to be very good. But there's still questions about him, like there is about most prospects coming up for sure. We just haven't seen them, just because guys like Rufy are essentially dominating everybody they're going up against, at least at this point. Paddy said he's not fighting Justin at 319. Who do you think is next if it's not Justin? I don't think Paddy's going to fight at 319. I think that's really what he means, because I touched upon this a little bit before, but when you saw him face off against Ilia, I mean, he's pretty fat. I don't think he can lose all that weight in a month and a half. It'll be really tough. I mean, he's done, crazy weight transformations before, but doing that in a month and a half while also at the same time training, also at the same time cutting weight and like more weight at the end of it, I think will be a little bit tough. And I don't think we're going to see Paddy fight that soon at UFC 319. Now, could it be Gaethje versus Armin? Possibly. I don't think that's going to be the fight. I think the UFC wants Paddy to be in a number one contender fight just because they want to give it to him. And I think um, at this point, Paddy is just, you can't really justify giving him the title shot. They've done it before, giving like guys low in the rankings a title shot. Paddy is, a relatively big star, at least in the UK. So we'll see what happens. But I think they're probably going to make him fight at least one more time, which I think will be the right thing to do. John says, if you had to corner someone fighting Ilia, what's your game plan? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. But no, if I had to corner someone fighting Ilia, what would I do? My corner advice, I guess, if you want to call it. I mean, I'm not an expert, obviously, but my corner advice for Charles was I thought he should fight at range. Don't just run right into Ilia. And we saw what happens when you do. He's going to land that right hand. It's too difficult to avoid that right hand if you're running right in. So probably what I would do is just keep range, especially if you're a guy like Charles that's longer than Ilia. Keep range, utilize your long shots, your jab, your right straight, utilize leg kicks a lot. Throw a couple head kicks. I'm sure they're not going to land, at least initially, but if you set it up nicely enough, maybe you can land it. And Ilia has been caught with the head kick before against Jai Herbert. And outside of that, I would recommend Charles also get in that clinch, but do so safely. If he goes recklessly into the clinch, Topuria could just push him off a little bit, get a little bit of space, and land a big right hand. So, it's very dangerous. But yeah, on the feet, keep range. Either keep range or get the clinch. Don't be in that inside boxing range. That's the one thing you really want to avoid. And if you're able to get in the clinch, I would recommend going for takedowns on him. But even then, like, you have to be a very, very good wrestler to actually get him down. I mean, Charles wasn't even able to do it, although it was only one attempt. Maybe if he got more opportunities, maybe he'll be able to take down Ilia. But very tough. Ilia's a pretty complete fighter at this point. But yeah, I think that's probably what my game plan would be. But even then, I don't know if it would work. For John, well, actually, sorry, going back to this question, for Paddy, I'll give you Paddy's game plan, at least most likely what it'll be. I think for Paddy, on the feet, he kind of knows at this point that he's not a great boxer. Early on, he didn't. And that's where we saw the Jared Gordon thing, where he was just constantly in the pocket and he was getting caught up because his head movement's not good or really non-existent, and his inside boxing is not even that good that he's able to land shots on guys. He wasn't able to land on Jared Gordon. Nonetheless, an Ilia Topuria or someone like that. So I think for Paddy, the game plan for him is on the feet. He's going to look to utilize footwork, stay on the outside, utilize leg kicks, and when opportunities present themselves, if they do, he'll try to get in the clinch and take down Ilia. Now, will that work? I don't think so. I think even if Paddy's trying to stay on the outside, utilize leg kicks, maybe they could have somewhat of an effect, I guess. But for the most part, I think Ilia is going to be able to eventually cut off the cage well enough, force Paddy to be in the pocket with him. And in those situations, Paddy's just not going to win. The combos that Ilia throws at him is just going to be too much. Probably a lot of body head combos. And as I said, Paddy has a great chin. Maybe he can take one right hand, but one right hand. I mean, if Ilia lands 2 or 3 or 4, I just don't see anybody taking those kind of shots. And I know Paddy's a lot bigger, but I definitely think Ilia would win that relatively easily. But if I'm Paddy's corner, I'm sure that's what we're going to see from him, at least in terms of game plan. Will it work? I don't think so, but we'll see. Oh, I feel like Paddy could have some success against a guy like it. That's that's actually hilarious. By spamming leg kicks like he was against Bobby Green, but he needs to do a better job of protecting his chin. I completely agree. That's pretty funny, actually. But yeah, I completely agree with you, John. I think that's what he's probably going to do. He's going to really avoid that inside boxing range at all costs. Listen, Charles is a great fighter, but maybe his IQ wasn't necessarily there just walking into range against a guy with as much power as Ilia Topuria was. I don't think Paddy's going to do that. I think Paddy's going to be a little bit smarter out there on the feet. As you said, look to utilize his footwork, look to utilize leg kicks, stuff like that. I think that's what we're going to see him do on the feet. But yeah, as I said, will it work? Probably not. And he does get hit a little bit on the feet, a little bit less now, though, than he did in the past. but he still does get hit a little bit. And if he gets hit by other guys, I'm sure Ilia will eventually be able to find that chin. Being honest is, I would just like wrestle heavy versus Ilia, avoid standing and banging. That's fair as well. A guy that's probably gonna do that is probably Armin. Um, I'm sure Armin's gonna shoot, and he's gonna shoot a lot. The question is, when he does shoot, is he putting himself in that danger zone, and will Ilia be able to capitalize on that? And even if he does, get on the legs of Topuria, is Topuria just gonna reverse him like he did against Charles Oliveira? I mean, Armin's probably a better wrestler than Charles, I would say, although it is close. I mean, people may not think that, but Charles is actually a very good wrestler as he's progressed in his career. And obviously, Ilia was able to reverse him. So, would he be able to reverse Armin? I guess only time will tell if that fight even does get made. But yeah, probably a guy like Armin is going to wrestle heavy against Ilia. But if Armin does get, yeah, could see Armin attempting a game plan. I do as well. I think if Armin does get top position on Ilia Topuria, it's going to be a little bit difficult for Topuria to get back up. Armin does have really good top pressure. It's very hard for guys to escape. He has really good ground and pound. We saw that against Charles Oliveira. I mean, in that second round against Charles, he was able to land a lot of damage. So yeah, I do think that could be a game plan for Armin. Will it work? I think more so than Paddy and definitely more so than Gaethje. But in the end, I kind of just feel like Topuria is kind of just inevitable. Maybe you can shoot takedowns early. Maybe you can, have some level of success early, but eventually you're going to have to stay on the feet with this guy. And if you're staying on the feet with this guy, for too long, I think he's going to eventually be able to put combos together, and I think he's eventually going to be able to land and finish you. Honestly, Joshua says to fight Ilia, you need to kick heavy. Game plan around that, and don't trade with him. Also, make it boring. Hold on for dear life. Yeah, I mean that's probably the game plan, honestly. Yeah, kick heavy, stay at a boxing range, wrestle as much as you possibly could, or just hold him alongside the cage. We talk about this a lot on live streams that a lot of guys, their new meta, their new strategy is just holding guys on the cage. Guys have great takedown defense at this point. Even Alex Pereira has pretty good takedown defense from what we saw. And he's been, training MMA for how long? Just a few years. So training regimens are getting a lot better. Guys are getting way better at takedown defense. So the next evolution is, guys realize it's going to be hard to take guys down, especially Topuria. I'm sure it'll be hard to take Topuria down. So let's just hold him alongside the cage and win rounds like that. It's not fun, but you're winning, obviously, if you're in those situations. Now, will Ilia be able to get off the cage? Maybe. Probably, honestly, but it's definitely something to think about. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a game plan similar to that. Big Ong says, can't imagine how Gamrot versus Ilia would go. Honestly, an interesting one. I think Gamrot just gets knocked out in the end, kind of like a lot of other guys, to be honest. But if Gamrot's able to get on the legs of Topuria, it'll probably cause some issues. I mean, Gamrot was he's a really good wrestler. He's a really, really good wrestler. On the feet, he's not the best. He doesn't have the most power. Even on the ground, he doesn't have the best control or anything like that. But in terms of his pure shot, he's honestly one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. He gave a lot of problems to even Armin Tsarukyan. He technically beat Armin. I thought Armin won that fight, but regardless, it was close, and Gamrot was able to get a lot of advantageous positions in the wrestling scrambles against Armin. So yeah, I mean he's a really good fighter for sure. Gamrot is, and it'll be interesting to see. But as I said, I think Ilia would probably knock him out in the end, even if he gets taken down early. Turner, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Justin Gaethje, Vanny, isn't happening. Yeah. I saw that before. Here we go. I'll just pull it up quickly. Anyone joining the stream late? Here we go. Paddy says, he's not fighting. And he said this because, well, I don't know why, but I'm assuming because, this card is in August. It's like in a month and a half from now. And I don't think Paddy is going to be able to cut enough weight while also at the same time training, for Ilia Topuria. It's going to be the toughest test of his career. I don't think he's going to want to cut a lot of weight while also at the same time making a game plan and training and all that stuff. It's just not enough time. It won't be against Ilia, sorry. It'll be against Gaethje, but still, it would be the toughest test of his career. And yeah, but Yeah, because we just saw Paddy like a week ago or a few days ago, and he's obviously very fat at this point, so he's going to need to cut a lot of weight before he'll ever consider to go back into fight camp. Also, Paddy's at 1.5. No, 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 yeah, exactly, exactly. I think it's just too tough for him to cut enough weight to make that card. I think he wants to fight Gaethje. I actually do. I think Paddy wants to fight Gaethje more than Gaethje wants to fight Paddy. I think Gaethje really just wants to get a title shot. I mean, he's talked about it a couple times. I just don't think Gaethje's going to get a title shot right now. I don't think he personally deserves it. He's on a one-fight win streak. Yes, before that, he did beat some good guys for sure. I mean, he beat Fiziev before he lost to Max, and he also beat Dustin Poirier. Great wins. I mean, obviously, he's beaten some other guys as well. Definitely like great wins. But he did recently get knocked out by Max Holloway. And now he beat Gamrot again, but not super, super impressive win the way he did it. So yeah, I don't personally think he deserves it, but we'll see. We'll see. Turn says I think they should just get you the title shot. Give it to Dustin Poirier. Yeah, I mean, listen, they've definitely given it to a lot of guys that don't deserve it. There's no question about that. And if they do give it to Gaethje, am I going to be outraged or whatever? I mean, probably not. I just think for like if they're going to give a guy, an undeserving guy, a title shot, it probably should be Paddy, just because at least from their perspective, it's going to sell the most pay-per-views. They have the beef. Paddy's a decently big star. I wouldn't say he's a huge star, but he's a decently big star. And obviously Topuria wants to fight him, and Topuria really doesn't like him. So I think that probably would sell a little bit better. In terms of Gaethje versus Ilia, will that sell well? Of course it will. I think Ilia sells pretty well at this point, regardless of who he fights, especially considering he's the champion, and most of the guys he goes up against are going to be pretty good. It's just the thing about the fight itself. I think Ilia beats Paddy, and I think he beats Gaethje, both of them. But the fight itself, I think, could be maybe a little bit more. It can go a little bit longer for Paddy than it would Gaethje. Reason being is I think Gaethje's. I don't know. I don't know, but reason being is this. I just think on the feet, Gaethje's just a little bit too hittable, which so is Paddy, but Paddy I think is going to be a little bit smarter out there than Gaethje. And on the feet, I think Ilia can knock out Gaethje. And if Ilia is able to get a takedown on Gaethje, I think it's definitely over at that point. I think he'll just be able to find a submission on Gaethje. On the ground, I mean, we've seen this in a couple of Gaethje's title shots where he just gets taken down. He got taken down by Khabib. He got taken down by Charles. Or, well, he got knocked down by Charles. But regardless, the end result was the same, and he just got submitted. He just doesn't really have much jiu-jitsu on the ground, really at all, to avoid submissions or whatever. And I think we see him get caught a lot against guys with any decent level of jiu-jitsu. And I certainly think Topuria is good enough to find a submission on Gaethje. So that's what I think about it. And yeah, Dustin beat BSD, then fought Islam. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think Dustin deserved the shot when he got it. I think, as I said, what the UFC thought at that point was Dustin's a pretty big star. He just beat BSD, who a lot of people thought BSD, including myself actually, thought BSD was going to win that fight. They thought he was, a young up-and-comer, a legitimate contender, and Dustin beat him. So at that point, they're like, all right, big win for Dustin. It was a very, replayable knockout. Let's give him the title shot. Did he deserve it? No. But I think they thought in their minds it would make a lot of sense. And also it's kind of a legacy fight for Islam. Islam fought, a couple other guys that definitely were big names, but fighting a guy like Dustin and having a win over him on your resume, I think was something that Islam wanted as well. So it kind of made sense for Islam and for Dustin, obviously getting a title shot, and also for the UFC because it'll probably sell pretty well. But yeah, I think that's why they did it. Now for Gaethje, I don't think it's the same level. I mean, he's not as big of a star as Dustin is. So I don't think it's the same, but still, Justin is a very big name at the same time. I think Ilia knocks out Gaethje but that's fair. I mean, yeah, maybe I could make it out of the first round. I wouldn't be surprised. I heard. I'll give the credit where I heard it. I heard the Weasel talking about this. If you guys watch him, but in one of his more recent videos, he was saying, "Oh, Armin could make it out of the first round, or he'll make it 3 rounds. Gaethje probably gets knocked out in the first 2. Paddy gets knocked out in the first round, whatever it is." And it's kind of funny that we're at a point where we're talking about guys how long they can survive. as opposed to can they actually beat Ilia? I think a lot of these guys that we mentioned, at least for me, and maybe for a lot of guys in chat, you guys don't agree, but I'm assuming most of the guys in chat believe that Topuria beats most of these guys. I think he beats Gaethje, I think he beats Paddy, and I even think he beats Armin, although Armin's probably the toughest fight out of those three. But it is just funny to say like, oh, I think this guy would not get finished as early as this guy. It kind of just shows how dominant he is. And the Weasel talked about this a little bit. I think he's right. It's kind of like a similar level, not as dominant, but a similar level to a Khabib. Honestly, probably the closest thing to Khabib we've seen in at least a long time. I mean, Khabib was more dominant than Topuria just because he really didn't lose a round. But or maybe he did, but barely lost rounds. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Topuria's doing a little bit differently because he's finishing guys earlier, I guess, but still, both of them are super dominant. I feel like Ilya's going to knock out Gaethje in the third round. That's fair. That's fair. I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, I think. I think I don't know. It's interesting because Gaethje is pretty hittable, and yes, his chin's good. But as I touched upon before a little bit, your chin could be really good, but when a guy hits really hard like Topuria does, or even some other guys, I don't care how good your chin is. Eventually, you're going to get knocked out if you take enough shots from these guys. And I think Topuria is kind of just one of those guys where maybe Paddy or Gaethje or whoever Armin doesn't have the best chin, but at least for Gaethje or Paddy, maybe they could take a couple shots early, a couple right hands, but eventually, if Topuria is just landing, I mean, he's gonna probably win by a TKO. So does Gaethje make it to the third round? Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised either if Ilia found like a first round knockout or a second round knockout. We'll see. Gaethje's leg kicks can give Ilia some problems. I probably would agree. Gaethje's leg kicks really give everybody problems. And for Topuria, a lot of people think that's the way to beat him. Leg kicks probably is the only way that seems logical at this point. So yeah, I do think the leg kicks can have an issue. But the thing about the leg kicks of Gaethje is we saw this in Gaethje's fight against Dustin, where Dustin was willing to eat some of those leg kicks to land his own hooks. And I think we could see a similar thing from Topuria. Where if you look back at the Charles fight versus Topuria, Charles was also going with leg kicks, but when Charles threw a leg kick, which his leg kicks are also really good, actually pretty underrated, when he was throwing his leg kicks, Topuria would counter. He would counter with a jab, or he would counter maybe sometimes with the right hand. And it's kind of a back and forth game. Sometimes when Topuria was throwing the jab, Charles would throw the leg kick and to counter the jab. And sometimes when Charles was throwing a leg kick, Topuria would throw his jab to counter. So it's kind of they were countering each other in some ways, but still, Topuria has shown the ability to counter leg kicks in a bunch of different fights. So that's the one thing that I would worry about for Gaethje. But probably the leg kicks are going to be probably effective. Gaethje's leg kicks are probably going to be the most effective as compared to anybody else against Ilia. Jake, what's up, brother? Welcome to the stream. I'm from Liverpool. How much of a star is Paddy in the States? I mean, he's definitely a star. When he went to Miami, I believe it was in Miami when he fought Gaethje, or when he fought Chandler. The crowd was definitely going crazy for him. He is a decently big star, I would say, especially if he becomes a champion, if he does beat Ilia, which I personally don't think is super likely, but he is a lot bigger than Ilia. Could theoretically happen. It is MMA. So if he does do that, I think he'll become a pretty big star. Obviously, he'll become a huge star in Liverpool. I think he already is. But in the States, I think he'll become also a pretty big star, especially beating someone like Ilia, who's probably at this point the biggest star in the UFC or close to it, top two. So yeah, I mean, at this point, I think he's a decently big star. But if he becomes champion, I think that'll really take his game to the next level. I think Rofi can potentially be a tough fight for Ilia. I heard a lot of people talking about this. I don't remember who said it last. Maybe you were the one that said it last. But yeah, a lot of people are saying this, that Rofi could be a tough fight for Ilia, and I probably would agree. The only thing I will say about that fight, though, is I don't think Ilia is going to stick around that long. And I don't know how fast the UFC wants to push Rofi to get a title shot. I mean, he has a very fan-friendly style. I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC really does push him forward. But I think for Topuria, what he really wants to do in his mind is he wants to fight Paddy, Gaethje, or Armin, one of the three, whoever is given to him next. In his mind, he wants to beat them, obviously, get a finish. And then if Islam wins at 170, I think Topuria is going to move up. So he gets one title defense at 155 and then move up. Similar thing to what he did at 145. Now, will he do that? We'll see. I mean, will he beat Paddy, Gaethje, or Armin next? We'll see, obviously. And will the UFC allow him to move up again? Of course, we will see. Maybe the UFC is going to want him to get more title defenses at 155, which is possible. But I think in Topuria's mind, he really, really wants to beat Ilia. Or sorry, he really wants to beat Islam, and and I think that's what he wants. Now, will it happen? I don't know, but I think that's what he wants, to say the least. Josh Emmett ate all those Ilia punches. It's honestly unbelievable. I mean, I don't think a lot of guys at 155 taking shots. Some guys at 170, I don't know. I mean, they're going to be a lot bigger than Topuria at 170, but still, I wouldn't be surprised if some guys, even at that weight class, wouldn't be able to take Topuria shots all that well. So the fact that Josh Emmett at 145 was able to take all those shots, and it's not like, he didn't get hit that much and he survived full 5 round. No, he got hit a lot. He got dropped a couple different times, and he was able to eat those shots, which is kind of crazy. I don't know what kind of juice he was on in that fight, or maybe still at this point, who knows? But it's pretty crazy and that he was able to take those shots. Um, Big Ong says, if Dustin wins versus Max, do you think he gets a title shot? I think honestly, I actually think it's a possibility. I think Ilia would like to fight Dustin. As I said, similar case for Islam fighting Dustin. It's a big name. It's a big star. It's a, a big name that you can have on your resume. And I think Ilia would want that. But I think for Dustin, he can't just beat Max. I think he would need to finish Max. And if he did, maybe the UFC offers him a title shot. Even then, who knows? But from Dustin's perspective, if he finds a knockout on Max and the UFC comes to him and says, all right, we're going to give you a title shot, fight one more time, which I don't know if the UFC is going to want to do at the same time, just thinking about it now, just because the UFC hates when guys win the belt and retire. And Dustin would almost definitely do that. So actually, I don't know. I'm going to say probably no, actually, now rethinking it. But, but yeah, I mean, maybe the UFC, says, all right, if Dustin knocks out Max, that's a huge win for him. Let's give him a title shot. We'll sell a lot of pay-per-views between Dustin and Ilia, and in the back of their mind, they're just hoping and praying that Ilia wins. Maybe that's what they do, just to put on to sell a lot of pay-per-views. I don't know, but I'd probably say no. That would be my final answer. I think probably no, but I wouldn't be surprised either way, I guess. But one thing I respect about Duke Bronx is he wasn't afraid to go in the fire with Ilia. Holloway didn't want to do it. Yeah, that is true. Charles he was not scared to go into the fire. Obviously, in the end, it wasn't the best game plan, but he definitely was not scared to go into the fire. And yeah, I mean, the end result was what it was. But Charles has been fighting like that forever, and he's had a lot of success against guys. And he thought he could probably do the same against Ilia, but in the end, it wasn't meant to be. Gene Silva versus Ilia. If Gene Silva beats Volk, That's the fight that I really want to see. I think that's probably like one of the best fights you can put together. Probably the best fight you can put together at 145. The only problem is I don't think Ilia is ever moving down to 145. He talked about his inability to cut weight or problems with him cutting weight. Moving down to 145, and now he put on a bunch of muscle after saying all those things, and he's the champion at 155. I don't see him going back down to 145 unless Gene becomes a champion at 145, and then he wants to move up to 155 and do a champ versus champ kind of fight between Silva and Ilia. But that's very far away at this point. And as I said, I just don't know how much longer Ilia is going to fight. That's the only problem. But one second, boys, I just got to go to the bathroom quickly. One second. Fellas, fellas. Sorry, boys. I'm back. Man, it's getting hot in that thing. Yeah, I wasn't feeling that well before. That's why I was wearing the hoodie, but feeling a little bit better now. Anyways, yeah, Gene Silva's Volk. Just imagine the barking and trash talk that Silva does to Ilia. It would be interesting to see for sure. Um, but yeah, that's the fight. Honestly, that really, really is the fight. Topuria versus Silva. I think both of those guys have a very unique skill set where they're both really good, obviously very technical, but they also both have a ridiculous amount of physicality. Both hit really hard and can take a shot really well. Topuria has a great chin, Gene Silva appears to have a really good chin as well. So it'll be a really interesting one for sure. I would like to see it, but as I said, I don't know if it'll happen unless Gene does move up to 155. Turner says, I don't want to see Topuria at 170. That's fair. I mean, it might just be too much at that point. I mean, he's relatively small for 155. So now imagine him moving up to 170. So yeah, I mean, he'll probably be a little bit small for that weight class, but we'll see what happens. JDM Topuria would be a good fight. JDM versus Topuria. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I think JDM will just be a little bit too big for Topuria. That'll be a weird time if we see JDM versus Topuria. That'll be an interesting one. But yeah, I think I agree with you before that Topuria is probably just gonna be a little bit too small, and JDM's pretty big for 170. So yeah, I think it'll just be a little bit too much for him. If he's gonna move up to 170, I think he's just gonna fight Islam, honestly. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Um, UFC made that card in New Orleans just for Dustin to retire. Yeah, they did. They did. They see him as a big star, and which he is. I mean, he is a star. And they just wanted to put a card together for him. Hopefully, it'll sell pretty well for the UFC. I think that's what their thoughts was. And also, they haven't went to New Orleans in a long time, so I think that's why they decided to put that fight together, that card together. That kind of defeats the purpose of the UFC making a retirement fight for Dustin in his home state, just for him not to retire. That's fair. That's fair. You were talking about well, because we were talking about before if Dustin wins, we'll get a title shot. That's fair. You're probably right. But yeah, I'm sure he's going to retire after this fight, regardless of the result. But it'll be interesting to see if he does find a knockout on Max, what he'll do or what the UFC wants him to do or whatever. Big Young says maybe Gene Silva goes up to 155 to try to get that second belt. Yeah, that'll be the only way we see him versus Ilia. Just the only thing, as I touched upon before, I don't know how much longer Ilia is going to fight at 155 or how much longer he's going to fight in general. There's a lot of moving parts for Gene to get a title shot. He's going to have to beat Diego Lopez, which I think he will. And then after that, I'm sure he'll get a title shot against Volk, and I think he'll probably win. But that alone, those two fights alone, will take a little bit of time. And then he would have to get a title defense, which would be even more time. And then if he gets a title defense and he finds a finish, a successful fight or whatever, then he wants to move up. At that point, I'm sure he'll get it. But in that time, Topuria could fight, twice as well, or maybe he fights once and he decides to move up to 170. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts for that to happen. But theoretically, if it could happen, I definitely would like to see it a lot. Jake says, do you think Alex Pereira will eventually move up to fight Tom Aspinall? I think it was almost a guarantee if he beat Ankalaev. Even at this point, I think if he beats Ankalaev in the rematch, I think he probably moves up, honestly. I think if Pereira loses to Ankalaev again, there's a chance he retires. But if he beats Ankalaev, I think there's a chance that he moves up to fight Tom Aspinall, or maybe he needs to fight one more fight at heavyweight. The only problem with that, though, is if he's the champion, he's kind of holding up the division, what the UFC doesn't like. So it'll be interesting. It's just if he loses, then he won't have to worry about holding up the division against Ankalaev. But if he loses, I think there's a real chance he retires. He's done a lot in the sport. I don't know how much left is there is for him to do. He did already win two belts, and yes, I mean he could try to go for that third belt, but it's just not an easy thing to do, obviously. And I don't know how much motivation he would have for that, but we'll see. I would probably say no if I had to answer your question, Jake, but I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't see him knocking out Holloway. I think Holloway gets it done this time around. I actually completely agree. I think Holloway wins this fight as well. Um, and I actually made a video on it if you guys are interested. Um, would you guys be interested in doing not like my personal videos, but just videos in general, whatever, just watching other content and seeing what other guys have to say about MMA, or do you prefer this style where I just have the full screen of my face and just answering your guys' questions, or a little bit of a hybrid? Um, it'll be interesting. But where was it? Here, yeah. Let me just pull this up quickly. Um, yeah, so I have the video here. Max Holloway, peace up, Dustin. I agree. I agree though that Max will win this time around, but we'll see what happens. Jake says, "Do you think Joshua Van has a chance of beating Pantoja?" I do. I actually think Van is going to be the toughest test for Pantoja in a long time. I think Pantoja still wins in the end, but I think the difference maker is not necessarily the skill. I think the difference maker is the physicality. Pantoja has a ridiculous chin. He take a lot of shots. He took a lot of shots against Usyk, some big shots, and he took a lot of shots against other guys. Even Figueiredo landed big shots. He dropped him, but he still was able to survive. So I think the physicality is a difference. And when you look at Van, he took an uppercut from Charles Johnson, and he got knocked out from that. So that's the difference for me. But in terms of skill, I think Van definitely has an advantage on the feet. I think he'll be able to counter effectively, especially an aggressive style of Pantoja, similar to what we saw him do against Royval, where he was countering very, very effectively. I think we could see a similar thing against Pantoja. And in terms of his takedown defense, if he gets taken down, I think it'll be trouble for Van. But in terms of his takedown defense, I think it's really good. We saw it against Ray Surya. I keep messing up his name, but we saw it against him a little bit. Who's a really, really good wrestler. He just doesn't have much else to his game. But Van was able to stop essentially all those takedowns, and even against other guys, he has really good takedown defense. So there's a real chance this fight could be stuck on the feet, and Van, I think, is the better striker out of the two. But as I mentioned, I think Van can land 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 counters, you know, in like a short amount of time on Pantoja, and Pantoja lands one shot, one big left hand, and he's able to knock out Van. I think that's the difference in this fight. Um, but yeah, overall, I do think it's probably the toughest test of Pantoja's career, at least the toughest test of his championship reign. But at the end, I think Pantoja wins. Um, if Pantoja wins, surely he fights Merab. I would really like to see that. I touched upon it before a little bit. I think that's like um, the hardcore fans, like that's the dream fight you want to see. Two guys that are like ridiculously good on the ground. Merab more so wrestling, Pantoja more so jiu-jitsu. And it'll be really interesting to see some scrambles between these guys on the ground. So I would personally really love to see the fight. And yes, Pantoja could certainly move up if you'd want to. Merab will also almost certainly accept the fight. It's just the thing is, I don't think Pantoja wants to. I think he wants to stay at 125 and get a bunch of title defenses, similar to what Demetrius was able to do. Excuse me. And I touched upon this before a little bit, but there's different ways to become great. You can do the Topuria way, where you get a couple fights, you kind of speed your way up to the belt. You win the belt, you get one title defense, then you move up to a weight class and become the champ there. That's a way to be great, obviously. But the other way is just get title defenses and clear out your division, similar to what Usman was able to do back in the day, and similar to what Pantoja is able to do right now. He's really clearing out the division. When you look at the title defenses, he has 4 title defenses at this point. But even besides that, when you look at the guys he's beat, he's essentially beaten everybody at 125. One of the only guys he hasn't beat yet is Joshua Van, just because he's kind of he's new to the UFC, and he's getting a speed run up to a belt. So will this fight happen? Honestly, I kind of don't think so, just because Pantoja doesn't want it. Not because the UFC doesn't want it, or not because Merab doesn't want it. I just think Pantoja wants to stay at 125. But he could change his mind in the end, of course. It is possible. I would love to see that fight. But I guess we will see. But yeah, a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff coming. Big Ong says, "How soon do you think we're going to see Moreno get another shot at the belt?" So Moreno just beat Urseg. Does he need to fight again before he gets another shot? Uh, Probably just because they're giving it to Van next. Well, mm, you know what I would do probably? This is, ooh, yeah, Moreno's a wild card actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Probably what I would like to do is I would like to do Moreno versus Cop as a number 1 contender fight. You have Van already fighting Pantoja, then you do Moreno versus Cop as a number 1 contender fight, and whoever wins that gets a title shot. I think that's a good way because for Cop, he needs one more fight before he gets a shot, and for Moreno, he could technically wait and maybe get a title shot, but I think the UFC prefers Cop to fight just because. Yes, Pantoja did beat Cop before, but he beat Moreno 3 separate times. So I think the UFC would prefer that a little bit, and also Cop does have that fan-friendly style. Um, so that's probably what I would do. Cop versus Moreno for the title shot, or for the number 1 contender, and at that point, that would be Pantoja's next title defense, assuming he does beat Joshua Van. So I don't know how long or how soon do I think? It could be relatively soon, or if Pantoja loses to Van, he'll get an immediate title shot, obviously, and then it'll take a lot longer for Moreno to get it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Probably like relatively soon, but I think he's going to need another win to answer your question. By the way, if you guys are enjoying the stream, be sure to hit that like button. It does help out a lot. And feel free to drop a super chat if you guys want to. Obviously, if you're enjoying the stream, don't feel obligated at all. I appreciate you guys just for being here and asking questions. It's been really fun answering all your boys' questions. We got some new news out, and we're just discussing it. It's been great. So thanks everybody just for being here. I really do appreciate it a lot. Um, but yeah. We got John with his signature emoji. Appreciate that, John. I appreciate that. Um, but yeah, a lot of moving parts. I think 125 is like slowly becoming one of the better weight classes. I know we don't see a ton of finishes outside of Pantoja. And I know it's smaller guys, they take a lot more shots or whatever, and maybe some fans don't like really like that, like to watch 125 as much as maybe some other weight classes where their shots probably have more meaning to them. But in my opinion, I just think there's so many guys at 125 that are like legitimately very good. Just bringing up the rankings here. I mean, obviously we have Pantoja as the champ, who's one of the best champions in the UFC. We have Joshua Van, who's fighting next. I think his boxing is legit, and I think he's going to be a real test for Pantoja. Then you have Brandon Moreno, who's a former champion, honestly, like one of the best 125ers of all time. Not the best, obviously, but one of. He's had a really good run. Then you have Roy Val, who is currently the number 3 ranked guy. He lost to Joshua Van, but there's a lot of guys that he could beat. He even beat Moreno. And then you have Amir Albazi. I'm not super high on Albazi, but he's got some decent wins. KKF, also not super high on him. But he has power and he's dangerous. Tsuda Taira, I think he's good, but his game needs to, um, you know, he needs to improve some aspects of his game. Manel Kopp is number 7. I think he's really good. Amabayev, I think, is really good. He's number 9. Steve Ursek, I'm a big fan of Urseg. Let's do that. I'm a big fan of Urseg, and he's all the way down at number 10. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good guys. Kaya Sakura is 15. I personally think he's pretty good. Bruno Silva, I actually think is pretty good as well, and he's at 14. The thing about Bruno, though, is he just like comes up a little bit short. He's really good, but he just comes up a little bit short in the end. So honestly, I do think flyweight is one of the best divisions in the UFC, to be honest. But yeah, let's full screen this. Alan said he's fighting Yair next. Oh, I didn't know that at all, actually. Alan said he's fighting Yair next. Who do you have in that? I'm actually happy to hear that because I kind of thought Yair was going to get the next title shot. But if he's fighting Arnold Allen next, that's interesting. But yeah, so he said he's fighting Yair next. And then that makes me think that when Mofsar beats Pico, that's kind of what I thought actually initially, or what I thought could happen at least. That if Pico wins or if Mofsar wins, that they'll probably get the next title shot. I mean, if Mofsar beats Pico, I mean, he has to get a title shot next. I mean, how many guys can he fight before he gets the title shot? So, Yeah, I mean, maybe that is the number one contender fight at this point, Pico versus Movsar. I think the UFC is praying that Pico wins that, just because I mean they haven't had a million opportunities to give Movsar a title shot. They denied him like every time, um, but uh, but we'll see, I guess. But that's a good fight though. Yeah, Yair versus Allen. That's a good one. Um, and yeah, I'm just happy to hear that he's not getting the next title shot, or potentially not, I guess. Tamirov and Loner Kavanagh, Andre Lima, I'm a big fan of. Yeah, and Chavez are the prospects. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Tamirov, Loner Kavanagh, and Andre Lima are my top three of that list, actually. Well, obviously, I guess. I think Andre Lima is going to be a really good fighter. I mean, he has kickboxing experience, extensive kickboxing experience. But even as he's fought, I mean, he has a fight upcoming pretty soon. But even as he's got more experience in the UFC, he's doing a nice job at even offensively wrestling, not just stopping takedowns. And he's having a lot of success on the ground as well and making improvements. So I think Andre Lima is certainly a guy to look out for. Obviously, Loner Kavanagh has a lot of hype behind him, and for good reason. He's going to be really good. Tamirov, similar thing. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of guys in the rankings of 125 that are really good, but also, as you said, even prospects that aren't ranked. Some of those guys aren't ranked, and even they're really good. And I think they're good enough to be in the rankings of other weight classes. Um, Rick, what's going on, Rick? Welcome to the stream. Nice. Michael Chandler says, with I don't know. It's a good question. It's a good question. So it's something you have to ask him, I guess. Uh, John's a big fan of Rick Allen. Very nice. Very nice. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Michael Chandler. Um, but we'll see. Um, John says, Rick Allen, why do you ask that in every chat? I don't know. Rick says, it's just a question, bro. Don't get so triggered. My bad, bro. My bad. Uh, Rick Allen's obsessed with Chandler's kids. Michael Chandler must regret waiting all those years for the Conor McGregor. Yeah, I agree. He definitely does. Um, he definitely does. Um, you know, I think when we saw Chandler next, what was it, like 2 years after he was supposed to fight Conor originally? When we saw him next, um, he just like looked washed against Charles in that fight. He looked kind of washed, or he looked like he was at the very least had a lot of ring rust. And then after that fight happened, I mean, he even had some success in the fifth round. It's kind of because he eye poked. Um, Charles, but still, I kind of thought, all that time off led to ring rust that we hear all the time. And I thought in his next fight against Paddy, he would look a little bit better. Um, but but yeah, unfortunately, he didn't. I think at this point, he's probably washed. He's essentially washed at this point. And yeah, maybe if he fought a little bit earlier, um, I don't know, maybe he wouldn't have been as washed. Uh, we got a little beef between Rick and John. Settle down, fellas. Um, who do you think's going to the brand now that Dana's still all right, I'll answer this question, Rick. So, who do I think is going to be the UFC president? I mean, I think Dana's still going to be there. He is checked out. I agree with you. He's essentially checked out. He's moving on to boxing, and even for boxing, I don't know how much like into it he is. I think he's just like trying so many different things with like, in my opinion, it's like the BS power slap thing, but that's another venture that he has going. He's just trying to like build a bunch of different things at the same time that he's really not super focused on any of them, I think. So who's the real guy behind the scenes? It's probably I think Dana's going to be there for a while. Whether or not he's actually running the show, I think he's going to be in that seat. But but yeah, it's probably just Hunter Campbell, like, behind the scenes, um, making all the deals and putting all the fights together. Um, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But as I said, I think Dan is probably gonna stay in that position for a while, I would assume. Bro, why isn't Dana ask him some money to pay for his new lung? 2 million is like chump change for Dana. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I definitely would like to see him do it. I know, actually, Jake Paul was talking about that he was going to give money to Dana, and very good on him. Or not to Dana, to Ben Askren, and very good on him if he did that. And yeah, Dana should do it. I also thought it was a little bit in bad taste is if you guys watch UFC 317, they were putting a promo together, I think before the main card, and they were just showing some highlights throughout the years, and they showed Masvidal knocking out Ben Askren. I thought that was in poor taste. I don't know if Dana approved that or whatever happened, but it's probably not the best time to be showing that highlight. But yeah, but fortunately for him, he was able to get enough donations, and he was able to pay for the lung transplant, double lung transplant, I believe, and it was successful. So yeah, that's good to hear. But yeah, it would have been nice if Dana paid. Maybe he did and he didn't say anything. I don't know, um, but yeah, and it would be public. And look like a good which is yeah, that's fair. Um, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Well, I don't know if we'll see, but I don't know what Dana did in that situation, if he donated or didn't, or I'm assuming he didn't because he didn't say anything. Um, but yeah, what else we got going on, boys? Also, thanks for everybody for joining the stream. I see we got a couple other guys coming in here. I appreciate you guys all for being here, and yeah, thanks for the questions as well. Rick says, "Where do you think 318 is going to be a good card? I think it's trash. Weird main event. I personally think the main event's really good. Oh wait, 318. Sorry. I'm thinking of 319. 318. Yeah, I guess it's a weird main event. I don't know. It's kind of I think it kind of doesn't get either guy anywhere. For Dustin, he's retiring, so I guess he doesn't care about getting further in the rankings or whatever. But for Max, if he beats Dustin, that's a good win for him, and he can move up the rankings. The only problem for Max is Ilia is the champion, and he just lost to him. He got finished by him, so that's not ideal for him. It is kind of a weird main event. I agree with you. It's a pay-per-view with no title fight at the top. I don't know if this is for the BMF belt. I'm assuming it is, but not like a real title shot or title fight. So yeah, and then even besides the main event, the rest of the card isn't that great. But yeah, we'll see. Sometimes those cards over deliver, though. I guess we'll see. We don't want to see Poirier versus Max again, and there's no stakes, nothing on the line. Weird main event. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Who you got? DDP Chimaev. This is, I think personally, this is probably the best fight the UFC can put together outside of Islam versus Ilia. I think it's going to be determined in the first round, and maybe that's not an amazing take or whatever. But if Drigas is able to survive round one Hamzat, which I think there's a real possibility, I think he's going to win. But if Hamzat's able, I think if Hamzat's able to get the finish, obviously in the first round, then he'll win. But who do I think is going to win? I think DDP is going to win. If I had to guess early, I think he's going to be able to survive round one. I think he will get taken down in the first round, but I think he'll survive on the ground. I think he'll be in bad spots in round one, but I think he'll be able to survive it, as I said. And once they get into round two, round three, especially round 4 or 5, if they make it there, I think Hamzat's going to be really tired at that point. We have seen him gas out a little bit in the past, and I think he'll probably gas out by that point. And I think Dricus can really go to work. Dricus has amazing cardio as compared to not so great cardio from Hamzat. So I lean Dricus, but Hamzat has been so dominant in the first round. Who knows what could happen in that fight? So yeah, I lean Dricus though. What do you guys think for that fight? Should be a really good one. Let's see. Here we go. We got some news about Rufy. He told the AG Rufy has fight news coming soon, so we'll see who he's fighting. We talked about him a little bit before, actually. I think they're probably going to push Rufy a little bit. I mean, he has a really exciting style. He's beating guys in in a Connor-like fashion, honestly. So I think they're really gonna push him, and especially if he's continuing to get the finishes, continuing to put on like exciting performances, I think we're gonna see a lot more of him, or the push for him at least, to get a title shot. So we'll see who his next opponent is, and we'll see where his career goes from here. But I think it should be a exciting fight, whoever they put Rufi in there against. Rufi just kind of has that fan friendly style that essentially, regardless of who he fights, it's going to be a fun one. Um, but yeah, let's see. Let's see. Then we just got other stuff. Bruno Ferreira says he's still going to stay in UFC 318. He's just going to get a new opponent. So we'll see what happens there. As Ikram Aliskerov had to pull out with an injury. So yeah, that card gets a little bit worse, unfortunately. Um, yeah, we'll see. I mean, UFC 318 is it's not a great card. Let's just look over the card quickly, actually. Um, let's see. So the main event, we have Max versus Poirier, obviously, as we talked about. Then we have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. That fight was supposed to be on this card, UFC 317, but it got pushed to 318. We'll see if that fight takes place. Paulo pulls out of every fight, it seems like. Then we have Zellhuber versus Michael Johnson. I mean, not like a super high ranking fight or anything like that, but Zellhuber's a relatively entertaining prospect, and Michael Johnson's a little bit past it at this point, but usually puts on fun fights. Marvin Vittori versus Brendan Allen, interesting. I don't know if it'll be that exciting. I think Vinicius Oliveira versus Kyler Phillips, that could be a really fun fight. Both guys really go for it. I'm kind of high on Vinicius Oliveira, actually, maybe higher than I should be. But I think he could put on a good performance and possibly put on a fun fight. Then we have Bruno Ferreira fighting somebody. We don't know who it is yet, but he's going to stay in the card. Jimmy Crute versus Prochnio, not a great fight. Could be fun, I guess, but not a great fight. Gunnar Nelson versus Neil Magny, what a fight. Uh, I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you, Rick, though. It's not a great card. The main event is like probably fun, but weird. But you know, what are you gonna do? Oh, we got some kick boys. I should do that. Any fights coming up? No. For me, no. But Rick says, "Have you ever traveled outside of the USA, bro?" I have a couple different times. Um, Went to Mexico a few different times and Canada, not too far from the US, but I have a trip planned to Japan, so that'll be fun. Um, yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of cool to stream from there, but we'll see. It's not happening that soon. What about you though? Have you traveled outside of the US? I'm assuming you're from the US as well. Um, yeah, very nice. I'll keep that on the screen for a second. um, let's open up the kick chat. Let's see what the boys are talking about. Um, Rick says, "Yeah, I've been to Europe. Nice, bro. Are you going to Tokyo and Kyoto?" Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, I'm going to Tokyo mainly. Well, Tokyo and Kyoto are going to be the main two stops, and then I'm going to take probably some day trips to some other places as well. I think I'm going to go to what is it called? Um, Hiroshima. I think I'm going to go there for a day trip. I think it's relatively close to Kyoto, and they have the bullet trains over there, so you can get places a little bit quicker. And yeah, but should be a fun trip. I'm excited about that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Where in Europe did you go, by the way, Rick? Um, Hey man, you can have those emojis for your channel, man. Just right click and say that's pretty easy. Um, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Thank you, thank you. That's an expensive vacation in Japan. You saved up a lot. Yeah, I mean, Japan is, like, relatively cheap for, somewhere that far, I guess. I mean, when you go that far to some other places, it's gonna be more expensive than Japan, but overall, because it's so far and because I'm staying there a little bit, I'll be there for 2 weeks, it'll be a little bit much, but yeah, I saved up for a little bit, and I used, credit card points, for the flights, so Those are covered. Um, and and yeah, but um, but yeah, that's pretty cool. Couple more of the emojis. Um, what a beautiful photo. Rick says France. Oh, nice. How long ago did you go there? And did you enjoy it? Um, but yeah. Rick says, nah, bro, Hiroshima's pretty far from Kyoto. Kind of the other end of the country. Oh, okay. All right. I'm off then. Um, maybe Nagasaki then. I don't know. I might just be off. But yeah, I'm staying in Tokyo and Kyoto. And then from there, I'll probably, take day trips in some other places. Um, but but yeah. Rick says was there for a month. Yeah, it's nice, bro. That's really cool. Um, that's really nice. Um, but yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, what do we got here? What do we got? Bro, check out Nara. It's close to Kyoto. All right, definitely will do. Will do. Um, that'll be pretty cool. Yeah, it's gonna be very different. I mean, I obviously, as I said, I went to like Mexico or Canada, but it's not like um that different from the especially Canada. It's like the same almost as the US. But going to Japan is going to be like a big culture shock, and that the time change is going to be huge. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, it'll be fun though. I will check out Nara. Thanks for the advice. Um, um, uh, um, we got John in the chat. Um, a little beefier. I mean, listen, we could set it up here. Um, so you guys know each other, Rick and John. Um, you guys talk on chats a lot. Um, but but yeah, what are you gonna do? Let's see. So, man. Um, that could be a UFC 318 pay per view main event, honestly. Um, John versus Rick. I mean, who knows? Or maybe 5 round co-main. That'll be interesting. Put it together. Um, um, but let's see. I'm just checking to see if there's any new any new news or anything like that. What state am I in? I'm in New York. What about you, Rick? Where are you checking in from? Um, oh, actually, I completely forgot about Whitaker versus DeRitter. That card's gonna be really good. It's a fight night, obviously, but it's in Abu Dhabi, so they're gonna stack that card up. Rick's in Toronto. Oh, very nice. I've been to Toronto a few times. It's pretty nice. Um, but yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, so we have let's talk about this a little bit, I guess. So we have UFC Abu Dhabi, the fight night with Whitaker and RDR as the main event. That's a good one. That's a really interesting one. Um, I for whatever reason I kind of feel like RDR is going to pull it off. Whitaker may be a little bit past it at this point. We'll see how he looks in this fight. I think that will determine whether or not he's past it. But I don't know. I mean, Whitaker obviously historically has really good takedown defense, and probably for RDR to win this fight, he's going to need to get a takedown, unless he pressures him alongside the cage and fires in knees. Um, but we'll see what happens. It should be an interesting fight. Did he? No, I'm pretty against that actually, but but no, I didn't. um, but anyways, But yeah, so RDR versus Whitaker, it's an interesting fight. I definitely lean RDR in this fight, but it's a good one. It should be really fun. And Pico versus Movsar, we talked about it a little bit before, but this could be a number one contender fight. It could turn into one. I always thought Yair was going to get the next shot versus Volkanovski, but at this point, it doesn't seem like it. Um, we'll see. Some guys in chat were saying that he's going to fight Arnold Allen next, so we'll see what happens there. Rick says, "Are you in Manhattan, bro?" No, I'm not. I'm on Long Island. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't even vote for him if I wanted to, but trust me, I don't want to vote for him. But anyways, so yeah, that's an interesting one. You have the wrestling and power from Aaron Pico versus the overall well-rounded game from Movsar. It's a really good fight. I think Pico could honestly win that fight, but I think overall, I think I lean Movsar to win that fight against Pico, and maybe he'll finally get a title shot after that. I'm assuming he will, um, but we'll see. Then after that we have Shara versus Marc Andre Barrio. I'm not high on Shara at all, but I think this fight he probably beats Marc Andre Barrio. I don't think Shara's very good. I think he just throws kicks. Um, he just throws kicks and his boxing's not that great. So I guess if Marc Andre Barrio can pressure, then maybe he can have success. Bro should hang with Ray Long on his team. Yeah, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends actually that train over there. It's relatively close to me. So it is pretty cool to have so many guys from Long Island that are champions with Aljo and Weidman and other guys. Even Marab trains there sometimes. It doesn't seem like he does anymore. I know he still trains with Ray Longo, but it seems like he mostly trains in Arizona at this point. But yeah, it is cool. I know a couple people that train there. Yeah, I should. I mean, I've never trained before, but I probably should. I want to. I would learn. I would like to learn a little bit. But yeah. And in terms of challenging some of them, it probably won't go very well for me. But it would be cool just to train in the same gym. I know one of my boys was because how they usually do it in an open gym, I guess, is they have guys pair up against each other and they'll like spar for like a minute or 2 minutes, relatively light sparring, but they'll have them spar. And I had a boy that trains there, and he was sparring with Matt Frivola for a little bit. Matt Frivola is a little bit he's coming off a really bad knockout loss for Siam, but he had success when he was winning, obviously. But he was able to knock out what's his face? Oh, man, it's at the top of my tongue. The guy with the huge chin that kind of reminds me of Michael Chandler. I forgot his name. Um, but But anyways, yeah, so he was training with him. It would be pretty cool, but yeah, I've never trained at this point. But yeah, maybe I will in the future. Um, but yeah, then we have Bogdan Guskov versus Nikita Krylov. I guess I'll just throw this like this. Then we have Bogdan Guskov versus Nikita Krylov. I think I lean towards Krylov, but that's an interesting fight. We'll see what happens there. Then you have Almabayev versus Tamarov. This is a really good one, actually. I think I lean Almabayev slightly, but this is a good flyweight fight for sure. We'll see what happens in this one. And we have Billy versus Ebo. This guy fought in the UFC before. He has. And he lost. Oh, I remember this guy was. No, he's not very good. He's not very good. Yeah, he was a guy who kind of had some success early versus Bogdan, but then it almost seemed like he gave up. He was constantly getting put on his knees, and it seemed like he wanted to get finished, but the ref just wouldn't stop it. So he's not very good. I'm assuming Ebo is going to win that fight relatively easily, and then this fight is really, really good, but interesting one, I guess. Peter Yan versus Marcus McGee. It's kind of weird. They give Marcus McGee Peter Yan, but I definitely think Peter Yan's going to win that fight. And then Bryce Mitchell versus Said Nurmagomedov. Bryce is moving down. I think Bryce is gonna win that. I think it's a winnable fight for him actually. But but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Joshua says Alex Topuria versus Malcolm Wellmaker. Who would you pick? That's a great fight. Um, we haven't seen too much of Alexandre Topuria, but I would assume he has a really good chin. He just kind of looks like that. And his wrestling's really good. He's pretty athletic. I'm assuming he hits pretty hard as well. He kind of just has that build. But Malcolm Wellmaker is hits ridiculously hard. I don't know. I think I would probably lean Topuria actually in that fight, though. I think the wrestling could be big. We haven't really seen Malcolm stop takedowns. At least I don't think so. I don't remember his contender fight, but at least in the UFC, we didn't really see that. But it was only one fight. But I kind of feel that Topuria would be able to take him down and control him. But if he was stuck on the feet, I mean, who knows? That power of Wellmaker kind of just takes one shot to knock him out. Um, but yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. Um, let's see. Let's see. Let me just pull up Twitch. I just started streaming on Twitch today. I just want to see how that's going. Ah, we got a viewer in Twitch. What's going on, brother? All right. To be honest, I don't know what I'm looking at. Um, yeah, I don't know. All right. Anyways, I'm just kind of figuring things out. I just started streaming like 2 weeks ago, but it's been fun though. Just talking about fights and answering your guys' questions. It definitely has been fun. But yeah, so we have the Whitaker versus DeRitter fight. That should be fun. That should be good. Um, and yeah, we'll see what happens. Let's full screen this. Throw your comment up there, John. It's funny how at bantamweight we have Oliveira versus Narayan. Anyway, yeah, either Topuria versus Vinicius Saturday. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Definitely interesting. Um, we'll see what happens there. Um, But yeah, I think Vinicius Oliveira though at bantamweight is I think he's going to be very good. We'll see though. I mean, it's still pretty early. He does have his next fight scheduled, so we'll see what happens in that. Definitely a step up for him. But we'll see. I just think I don't think he's like the most skilled guy in the world, um, but I think he has enough skill, and I think he's just super physical. He hits pretty hard. He could take a shot really well. I think we saw that a couple times in some of his fights where he's taking a lot of shots, but he was still able to push forward. And in terms of his cardio, it's not like amazing, but at the same time, it's like pretty solid, and he's able to push through. Not exactly the same, but in somewhat of a similar fashion to Trickus. Obviously, I don't want to compare him to Trickus. Not nearly as good as Trickus, but what I mean is they both kind of seem like they're tired and they just push through. Um, but yeah. John says Vinicius is pretty good. Said and Ricky are good wins. Yeah. That his performance against Ricky was pretty weird, at least from Ricky's perspective. I actually think Ricky Simone is pretty good. Not like elite or anything, but I think he's pretty good. And Vinicius was like essentially able to do whatever he wanted on the feet against him. Leg kicks, jabs, right hands, whatever. Definitely a really good performance. But it was just weird to see Ricky fight like that because in his next fight, he really went for it a lot more and was able to find a finish. Not saying he could have finished Vinicius. I think Vinicius is really good. But it was just weird to see. And yeah, the Nurmagomedov win was also a pretty good one. Rick says, Rick loves to say, bro, what do you, or what year are you going to Japan this year? No, I'm going in January of next year. Not that close, but relatively soon. Relatively soon. But yeah, I'm excited for it. We'll see how we make out. Hopefully, by that point, I'll still be streaming, which I'm sure I will be. And maybe I don't know if you have any cars in January or if they go out that far, but it would be cool to stream from there and talk about some fights with you guys. Um, but yeah. Um, but yeah, do you guys have any other questions about any fights? Okay. Are you going by yourself? No, I'm going with my girl. No, I don't really. You travel solo? No, I don't really travel solo. Um, but yeah. What about you? Do you travel solo? Um, I mean, it definitely could be fun to travel solo, I guess. I just like to have someone there with me to experience these things with, I guess. Um, but yeah. Rick says he travels solo. That's fun too, though. It is fun just to explore the world and explore different places. It definitely is pretty cool. Um, let's see. You're gonna do Oscar skip. I think I'm probably gonna go. Yeah, that's I could be wrong. I don't know if the map in front of me, but that's close to Kyoto, I believe, like right next to it. So yeah, I probably will be going there. Um, but yeah. Um, Armin Surikin says Topuria is an easier fight than Oliveira. Don't agree with that at all, honestly. But I mean, it'll be interesting if we ever see that fight, Topuria versus Armin. I mean, Armin is like pretty physically strong, it would appear. It'll be interesting to see if Topuria can deal with the wrestling um, from him. But I don't know. I think in the end, as I said, Armin doesn't have the best chin in the world either. So I think in the end, he'll be caught on the feet against Topuria, and I think Topuria will be able to find the finish. Big Young says, "How far do you think I'm going if he beats Wonder Boy?" I mean, I think he's a decent fighter. I mean, he has good physicality. He can take a shot pretty well. He hits pretty hard. But mainly what he does out there is on the feet, he just, throws out a couple strikes. He's getting a little bit better. But mainly what he does is he just wants to take his opponents down and submit them, which is fine, obviously. But I don't know. I don't personally see him as like an elite prospect or anything. But of course, he could make improvements. He still is pretty early on in his career. And thus far, in most of the fights that he's been in, he's passed the test for sure. Um, so it'll be interesting to see. I think it's kind of I think he'll beat Wonder Boy, but I think it's kind of an interesting fight because if he's caught on the feet against Wonder Boy, I think it'll be kind of tough for him to have success. But I think in the end, he'll eventually be able to find a takedown, and if he does find that takedown, I think he'll find a submission. Um, but we'll see what happens for Gabriel Bonfim. Um, but interesting. His brother's a little bit of a, or maybe a lot better of a striker, but he doesn't have the same physicality as Gabriel does. So we'll see what happens. But I would say like a decent prospect, and I think he will beat Wonder Boy, as I said. Um, but yeah, let's see. Let's see what do we got. What do we got? Mm, this doesn't really matter. But Ariel put out his pound for pound list, and he has Ilia, Islam, Marat, Pantoja over Dricus, which is fair, honestly. Probably is fair. Um, but yeah, and we've been streaming for like an hour and a half. Appreciate all of your guys' questions. If you guys have any last second questions, just let me know in chat. I'll be sure to answer it. But if not, I think look to end the stream at this point. I really appreciate everyone for being here. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for all the comments. It's been fun talking to you boys about fights and some other stuff with you, Rick, about traveling and whatnot. I really appreciate it. So anybody who's in here that maybe wasn't in previous streams, I stream every day during the week at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to check out the live stream tomorrow. It will be out at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Also, be sure to check out for a YouTube video coming out tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. So, video 2 p.m. Eastern, live streams at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So, yeah, we got some content coming out. But I appreciate it, boys. I'll see you guys in the next one, or see you tomorrow, really. Peace out, boys.